Hi, I'm Sean Gannon, and this is Minute Math, and today we're learning about factoring using all the techniques. It's going to be hard.
Minute Math, when you need help you use Minute Math.
We're given this problem right here, x to the third minus 5x squared minus x plus 5, and we need to factor this. Well, right now I'm looking at it, I think I can group it. So I'm going to group the first two parts together, and then the second two parts together, but be careful. That subtraction sign, it was just to the x, and I don't want it to distribute to the 5. So to cancel that out, I'm going to put a minus 5 right there. So when it gets distributed, it stays a positive 5. Now with each group here, I see I can pull out an x squared in the first part. So I pull out an x squared, and what am I left with? Well, just an x minus 5. The second part, well, what can I put out? Well, just a 1. Right? Nothing really going on, nothing shared. So if you just pull out a 1 so we can see it visually. And we have an x minus 5 right there. Hopefully you can see we have an x minus 5 written twice. So we pull that x minus 5 out from both sides, and we're left with that x squared minus 1. Right there, the x squared minus 1. Now they're being multiplied, but again, we're not done. X squared minus 1 can be the same thing as a x, right? X plus 1 times an x minus 1. That's how that factors out. And then we have an x minus 5 right there. And so our final answer is x plus 1 times x minus 1 times x minus 5. We're given this problem right here. X to the fourth minus 2x squared minus 15, and we need to factor this. Well, this is in what we call quadratic form. And so to factor that, we treat it like it's a quadratic. We look at our c value, the negative 15, and we find all the two numbers that multiply to be 15. Or negative 15 actually. Negative 15 and 1, negative 5 and 3, flip it around, negative 3 and 5, and negative 1 and 15. Now with all of these pairs, we want to see which ones add to be our b value, which is negative 2. And that's the negative 5 and positive 3. Negative 5 plus 3, if you need to see it, is negative 2. So with that information, we know it's going to have some form of x squared. Don't forget that, x squared, like that. And then we have, well, the minus 5 here, and the plus 3. And so our final answer here is x squared minus 5 times x squared plus 3. We're given this problem right here. X to the 6th minus 26x to the third power minus 27. And we got to factor this. Well, we can see that this is in quadratic form. So we take our c value, negative 27, and we find two numbers that multiply to be a negative 27. And this one, well, we want to find two numbers multiply, to be negative 27 and add to be a negative 26. And that one's actually kind of easy. So going through this, I like to kind of jump ahead. Two numbers multiplied to be negative 27 are like 1 and 27. And well, 27 minus 1 gets me 26. So how can we make this line up right? Well, if we have a positive 1, and a negative 27, they multiply to be a negative 27. But when I add them together right there, so that equals a negative 26. So with that information, we have an x to the third, we can say plus 1, and an x to the third minus 27 is how we can break that down. Okay, so now we have two numbers here. Now notice here though that each one has x to the third power, and 1 can be written as 1 to the third power, and 27 can be written as 3 to the third power. And so with that information, we can use the sum and difference of cubes. Keeps on going. So if you remember, the sum of cube formulas are base value x and a base value 1 here. This first part will break down to be, using the formula, x plus 1 times an x squared minus x times 1, which is just an x, and plus 1 squared, which is 1. We can do the same thing with the second part. Each one's a cube, right? 27 is 3 cubed. So using the difference of cubes formula, slightly different, x minus 3 here, times, well, x squared, plus 3 times x, so 3x, and then plus 3 squared, which is 9. All right. Now, can this factor any more? And I'm looking, and that is a no. And so our final answer here is x plus 1 times x squared minus x plus 1 times x minus 3 times x squared plus 3x plus 9. We're given this problem right here. X to the 6th power plus 2x to the 4th minus 16x squared minus 32. And we got to factor this completely. Well, let's go take our time here. I see I can probably group this out. So I'm going to group the first two terms. And the second two terms, when I group it, I have to make sure there's a good parenthesis here. And it's good enough. Right there, that's a parenthesis. That minus sign, when I distribute it, it goes to the negative 16, but the negative 32 will make it positive. We want it to be negative. So I'm going to put a plus sign there to counteract that. Now, pulling out common terms, an x to the 4th is in both parts in the beginning. So we have x to the 4th here. And we're left with an x squared plus 2 minus. The second equation, or second part, sorry, we can pull out a 16. And in doing that, we're left with good old x squared plus 2. Now we can keep going with the grouping. We can pull out an x squared plus 2 that we see in both parts here, like that. And we're left with, well, that x to the 4th minus 16. All right, bringing those down, being multiplied. But again, we're not done. The x to the 4th minus 16 is a difference of cubes, the second part thing here. So, going with that, we want to take our, not difference of cubes. Oh, my apologies, I got ahead of myself. All right, they're not cubes because it's x to the 4th. Missed my notes here. It's in quadratic form. So this factors down to be an x squared plus 4 times an x squared minus 4. We can see that 4 times negative 4 is negative 16, but when we add them, they become 0, which is the b value that's not there. Keep on going. X squared plus 2, like that. Now, not done yet here. X squared minus 4, right? That can be also factored out. So we have an x squared plus 4 comes down, and x squared minus 4 is an x plus a 2, same idea, x minus a 2. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Add them together, we get to 0 there. And then we bring down the x squared plus 2. So after all that, our final answer here is x squared plus 4 times x plus 2 times x minus 2 times x squared plus 2. We're given this problem right here, x to the 4th minus 13 x squared plus 40, and we need to factor this completely. Well, notice this is in quadratic form here. And so my c value being 40 is the first clue that we're working with. But we want to use this in combination with our b value being negative. That tells me that the two numbers that multiply to be 40 both will have to be negative. So let's go through the pairs. Negative 40 and negative 1, negative 20 and negative 2, negative 10 and negative 4, and negative 8 and negative 5. So we go through all the pairs here and say, okay, which ones add to be negative 13? Can you guess it? Right here, negative 8 and negative 5. They add together to be negative 13. So these are the two numbers we're dealing with. We have an x squared here in this form, like so. And we have an x squared, well, minus 8, and then a minus 5. We actually can't factor this anymore, and so our final answer is x squared minus 8 times x squared minus 5. We're given this problem right here, x to the 9th minus x to the 6th minus x to the 3rd plus 1, and we got to factor this. Well, one thing I notice here is I can see some groups. If I group the first two parts, if I can see that, and then group the second two parts, but be careful, that subtraction was going to the x to the 3rd. So to cancel that distribution that would happen, I gotta put a minus sign right there in the 1. So with this, we can pull out a common term. Well, x to the 6th is in both parts here. So I pull out an x to the 6th here, and I'm left with an x to the 3rd minus 1. The right one, well, there's nothing really common, but I'm just gonna pull out a 1 so we can see it. And we have an x to the 3rd minus 1, like this. Now hopefully you can see x to the 3rd minus 1 is written twice. So this is our grouping. We pull that out, x to the 3rd minus 1, and we're left with, well, that x to the 6th minus 1. And this is where it really gets tricky. X to the 6th minus 1. How does that factor? Well, this is almost like a quadratic form, the b value being 0. This comes out to be an x to the 3rd plus 1 times an x to the third minus 1. 1 times negative 1 is a negative 1. When we add them together, we get 0. X to the third times x to the third, x to the sixth. So now the right one, this one's a little different. This one we're actually use the difference of cubes. Okay, we have our x to the third, which is a cube, but 1 is also a cube. 1 cubed is 1. So using our formula, the difference of cubes, we have an x minus 1 here, times, it's going to be a x squared plus 1 times x, which will just be x, plus 1 squared, which is, well, 1. And so, going down, we can simplify this a little more here, okay? Well, anything else we can really break down here, and, oh, look at that. We use x to the third minus 1, and we just found the difference of cubes here. We can actually do that again a second time, right? We do it a second time here, right, because it's the same thing. So, let's go break that down. So this one right here is an x minus 1 times an x squared plus x plus 1, we just found. Then we have an x minus 1 and an x squared plus x plus 1. But then I have another question. Isn't the x to the third plus 1 also the sum of cubes? Using that formula here, we have a, well, x plus 1 times x squared, I'm looking at my notes here, minus x, and then it's plus a 1. Well, x times 1 would be the x, and then 1 squared, 1. Okay, we got a lot of stuff here, but we can actually simplify it down some. The x plus 1 doesn't have anything it combines with, right? But notice we have an x squared minus 1x, or sorry, 1x plus 1, bring that here. But then the x minus 1 is written twice, so we can see that as an x minus 1 squared. Same thing with the x squared plus x plus 1 is written twice. Again, x squared plus x plus 1 squared. And so our final answer after all of this is x plus 1 times x squared minus x plus 1 times x minus 1 all squared plus x squared plus x plus 1 all squared. We're given this problem right here, x to the sixth minus 4x squared, and we got to factor this. Well, first thing I notice is there's an x squared here. Let's pull that out. X squared, and we're left with an x to the fourth minus 4. Well, then from here, can we factor this even more? Well, the x squared stays out, but the x to the fourth, it can be some x squared times some x squared. So we look at our 4, and we say what two numbers multiply to be negative 4, but add to be 0, the b value here. And that's a positive 2 and a negative 2. And at this point, we actually are done. There's nothing more this can factor. So our final answer is x squared times x squared plus 2 times x squared minus 2. We're given this problem right here. X to the fourth plus 14x squared plus 45. We got to factor this. I notice this is actually in quadratic form. So what that means, we take our c value, 45, and we find the numbers that multiply to be, well, 45, but add to be 14. Let's toss them out here. 45 and 1, 15 and, well, 3, and 9 and 5. Well, what's 9 plus 5? 9 plus 5 is 14. We got it right there. So these are the two numbers that we're looking for. Tricky part, quadratic form. X squared, x squared. X squared times x squared, x to the fourth. We add the two numbers that multiplied. 9 times 5 is 45, so we plus 9 here, plus 5 here. Multiply 45, we add them, gets 14. And so, pretty easy this one actually. Our final answer is x squared plus 9 times x squared plus 5. We're given this problem right here, 2x to the fourth plus x squared minus 6, and we got to factor this. Now the tricky part here is, I see this is in the quadratic form, but there's a 2 out here. So we have some 2x squared, and then some x squared like this. Okay? And now I have to look at my negative 6, my c value. Okay? And I want to find two numbers that multiply to be negative 6. Well, it's negative 6 and 1, negative 3 and 2, negative 2 and positive 3, and negative 1 and positive 6. And with that information, we want to find that 2 times one of these pairs of numbers plus 1 times the other pair gets us a positive 1 here. And that actually goes with the pair right here, -3 and 2. Or 2 times 2 plus 1 times a -3, what does that equal? 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 times -3 is a -3. Add that together, we get 1. That's what we're looking for. So the 2 gets multiplied by the positive 2. We're going to put that over here. And the -3 is on this side. And so we actually are done now. Our final answer is 2x squared minus 3 times x squared plus 2. We're given this problem right here. 2x squared minus 13x plus 20. And we got to factor this completely. Well, a little interesting here. We have 2x squared. So we know when it's factored, since our a value is 2, right there, it's going to be some form of 2x and then an x, like this. Alright, so we got to keep that in mind. Now our c value is 20, but notice our b value is negative. That means the two numbers that multiply to be 20, both will have to be negative. So let's go find some pairs. -20 and -1, -10 and -2, and -5 and -4. Each one of these pairs multiplies to be a positive 20. So now we have to find not specifically which ones add to be -13, but 2 times one of the numbers in a pair plus 1 times the other one gets us -13. Can you guess it? The pairs are going to be -5 and -4. 1 times a -5 plus 2 times a -4, right? What does that come out to be? A -13. So since the 2 goes with the -4, we put the -4 on this side and the -5 on this side. And so our final answer here is 2x minus 5 times x minus 4. We're given this problem right here. 4x to the third minus x squared minus 4x plus 1, and we got to factor this. Well, one thing I noticed is I can probably put this in some groups. So I'm going to group that here, and I'm going to group this here. Now be careful that minus sign was just to the 4x. So to cancel that, we have to put it to the 1, like that. When we distribute, negative, negative gave us back our positive. So let's pull out a common term. X squared is in both parts here. So we have now left x squared times 4x minus a 1. The right hand side, well, no common term, but we'll just pull out a 1 so we can see that. And we have 4x minus 1 here. Now hopefully you can see if 4x minus 1 repeats. Bring that down, 4x minus 1 like this. And then we have an x squared minus 1 right there. Perfect. Bring that down, x squared minus 1 times 4x minus 1. But be careful, we're not done. X squared minus 1 can factor as well. That comes out to be an x plus 1 times an x minus 1. Bring down the 4x minus 1 here. And there we have it, our final answer. X plus 1 times x minus 1 times 4x minus 1. We're given this problem right here. 4x to the 8th minus 61x to the 4th plus 225, and we got to factor this. Now what's tricky here is we can see it's in quadratic form. We have an a value of 4, meaning there's two options of setting this whole thing up. It has some combination of 2x to the 4th like this and 2x to the 4th, or we can have some 4x to the 4th times 4. Oh, sorry, well, not 4, just x to the 4th here. Getting ahead of myself. Common mistake. Be careful with that. X to the 4th. 4x to the 4th times x to the 4th gives me 4x to the 8th. Same thing with 2x to the 4th times 2x to the 4th gives me 4x to the 8th. So we have our two options. We now have to look at our c value, 225. And our b value is negative here. Okay, since our b value is negative, and 225, c value is positive, that means the two numbers that multiply to 225 have to be negative. Two negatives multiply, make a positive. So now we're going to go through all the numbers that multiply together to be negative 225. Negative 225 and negative 1, negative 75 and negative 3, negative 45 and negative 5, negative 25 and negative 9, and negative 15 and negative 15. So now we have to ask ourselves, 2 times one of the numbers plus 2 times the other number, does it get us negative 61? Or 4 times one of the numbers plus 1 times the other number gets us negative 61. And so we can try a whole bunch of these out there, and that's where we kind of go guessing. We're going to jump to, well, the answer. Negative 25 and 9 is what we're looking for here. How so? Well, 4 times a negative 9 plus 1 times a negative 25, what does that equal? Okay, well, 4 times negative 9 is a negative 36, and, well, we have plus a negative 25. Combine that, we get a negative 61. So these are the numbers that we're looking for. Negative 9 gets multiplied by the 4, so we put it on this side here. 25 gets multiplied by the 1, or negative 25, put that there. So we don't use this first part. Now, can we factor this any more? And the answer is, well, yes. This one here, this first part here, can factor out to be a 2x squared plus 5 and a 2x squared minus a 5, right? 5 times negative 5, negative 25. 2x squared times 2x squared is 4x to the 4th. And then 5 plus a negative 5 is 0. Same thing actually applies here as well. X squared and x squared, fit it here, pull that out. And then if we have a plus 3 and minus 3, 3 times negative 3 is 9, add them together we get a 0, and x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. And so our final answer here is 2x squared plus 5 times 2x squared minus 5 plus x squared plus 3 times x squared minus 3. We're given this problem right here, 5x squared plus 24x minus 5, and we got to factor this completely. Well, one thing I see is my a value is 5 here, so it has to factor to some form of 5x and then the x. So let's look at our c value, negative 5. We got to find what two numbers multiply to be negative 5. Well, that's a negative 5 and a 1, and a negative 1 and a positive 5. Not too many to go with. So now we have to ask ourselves, 5 times which number is in a pair, plus 1 times another number in a pair, gets us our b value, which is a positive 24. Well, this one actually, the way I think about it, 5 times 5 is close to 24, it's 25. So if we do 5 times the 5 plus that 1 times the negative 1, what do we get? 5 times 5 is 25, minus, well, 1 is 24. So this is the pair that we were working with. We got it. So let's go put, well, 5 times a 5, so 5 has to be on this side, and then the minus 1 over here. And so our final answer here is 5x minus 1 times 5x plus 5. We're given this problem right here, 5x squared plus 29x plus 20, and we got to factor this. Well, our a value is 5, so we have some form of 5x like this times some x like that. Our c value is 20. So let's break down the numbers that multiply to be that c value. That's 20. That's 20 and 1, 10 and 2, and 5 and 4. So now we have to ask ourselves a kind of difficult question. 5 times which one of the numbers in a pair plus 1 times the other number in a pair adds to be 29. Can you guess it? The 5 and the 4. 5 times 5 plus, so 5 times the 5 plus the 1 times the 4 comes out to be a 29, right? 5 times 5 is 25 plus 4, 29. So to match it up, 5 has to be multiplied by the 5, so put the 5 on this side. 4 by the 1, put the 4 here. And so our final answer is 5x plus 4 times x plus 5. We're given this problem right here, 4x squared plus 4x minus 15, and we got to factor this. Now our a value is 4 here, meaning we have two options to set up. It's some 4x times an x like this, or some pair of 2x times 2x. So with that, we need to take our c value, negative 15. We're going to find two numbers that multiply to be negative 15. Negative 15 and 1, negative 5 and 3, negative 3 and 5, and, well, don't forget negative 1 and positive 15. All right. With all of these pairs, we want to say, figure out which one. 4 times one of the numbers in a pair times 1 plus 1 times the other one equals a positive 4. Or 2 times one of the numbers in the pair plus 2 times another number in the pair gets us a positive 4 as well. So let's take a moment here, see if we can get it. And which one, well, do you think? Can you figure it out? The negative 3 and positive 5. 2 times a negative 3 plus 2 times a positive 5, what does that equal? Well, that's 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, and 2 times 5 is 10. And that equals a positive 4. So we ignore the first part here, and we're going to use a 2x and a 2x. 2x gets multiplied by the negative 3, and that 2 gets multiplied by the 5. And so our final answer here is, well, just 2x plus 5 times 2x minus 3. We're given this problem right here. 10x to the third minus 8x squared plus 25x minus 20. And we got to factor this. First thing I'm going to do is, well, group this. 2 groups like this, first 2 terms and second 2 terms. First 2 terms, what can we pull out that's common? A 2 goes into both numbers as well as an x squared. Pull that out, and we have a 5x minus 4 here. Do the same thing with the second 2 numbers. Is there a common number in both of them? That's 5. Pull out a 5, and we have a 5x minus 4 left over. Now 5x minus 4, 5x minus 4, you should see the repetition. We pull that out, right there from both parts, we're left with what's in front of each one. 2x squared, and then plus a 5. And so actually, we're done. We factored this completely. 2x squared plus 5 times 5x minus 4 is our final answer. We're given this problem right here. Negative 64x to the third plus 125 equals 0. And, well, we're going to factor this. We're not going to solve it. We're just going to factor it. So with that, we notice here, it's a little difficult, right? Well, negative 64x to the third and 125. This almost looks like a, well, sum of cubes formula. We can rewrite this to be really a negative 4x all cubed. Negative 4 cubed is negative 64. X cubed is x, or as x cubed. Plus 25 is 5 cubed. So let's use the sum of cubes formula here. We take the first part, negative 4x, and we're going to add the 5. From there, we take negative 4x, we square it, and we're going to subtract our a value, negative 4x, times it by our b value, 5, and we're going to add our b value squared, 5 squared. All that's in parentheses. So let's go simplify what we know. Negative 4x plus 5 here. And here, negative 4x squared is a 16x squared. Negative negative is a positive 20x, because 4 times 5 is 20, and 5 squared is 25. And that's equal to 0. At this point, I can't really factor it anymore. I'm pretty much done. You could maybe move the negative, pull the negative out, put it into this part. It really doesn't really help you. Like I said, we're not going to solve this. We just wanted to factor it. So our final answer here, factored, is negative 4x plus 5 times 16x squared plus 20x plus 25 equals 0. We're given this problem right here, 8x to the fourth plus 10x squared minus 3, and we got to factor this. Well, we can see this is in quadratic form. Now my a value is an 8. That means we have a few options here of setting this up. It can either have an 8x squared times a 1x squared, like that, or we can have some 4x squared times a 2x squared, like this. So we're going to keep that form in mind. Now luckily our c value is a small number, negative 3, and we define the pairs of numbers that multiply to be negative 3. Negative 3 and positive 1, and negative 1 and, well, positive 3. So with that information, we have to ask ourselves, out of the two options here, one of these, 8 or the 4, multiplied by one of these pairs, plus 1 or 2 times the other one of the pairs, gets us a positive 10 here. And kind of telling you the answer here, it's going to be the negative 1 and the positive 3. All right? 2 times a negative 1 plus 4 times a positive 3 is equal to, well, a negative 2 plus a 12, which is a positive 10, what we're looking for. All right? So how can we set this up? So the first part, we're not using the second part. 2 gets multiplied by the negative 1. Put a minus 1 there. 4 gets multiplied by a positive 3. Put that right there. Now we're actually not done. This can still factor more. This first part factors to be a 2x plus 1 times a 2x minus 1. Negative 1 times positive 1 is a negative 1. Add them together, we get a 0, that b value there. 2x times 2x, 4x squared. Bring down the 2x squared plus 3. And our final answer here is 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 1 times 2x squared plus 3. I hope this video was helpful for you, and if it was, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and like this video. This helps us make more free math lessons for you and for everyone else. So as always, thanks for watching.
Minute Math, when you need help you use Minute Math.